Hey, welcome to School Night TV. As I bump the mixer, we're just bumping mixers here. That's the new term. It's a new term for having a good time. We're bumping the mixer. Um, Something that's been on my mind. One thing that's on my mind always is the world we live in. It's a phrase I use usually to kind of address this weird technological. Uh, I don't know, not revolution. I think we're past the technological revolution, and we're just in a state of just constant. It's not much of a revolution if it's constant. It's almost like thinking about the apocalypse, like the idea of the apocalypse being like a single event. Like the apocalypse is just going to happen in one day. It's going to happen overnight. Apocalypse is just going to happen overnight. Everything's going to be gone. Um, it's the same way I think with technology at this point, where it's in constant movement. So therefore, it's not much of a revolution. But the world we live in, and when people are uncomfortable with certain aspects of technology, be it using their phone, social media, people used to be uncomfortable with the internet, things like that, I'll say, it's the world we live in. And I think it's good to maintain a balance between being kind of a Luddite who's like, I'm just going to, go out to a cabin and do nothing. These days, what's funny about that is like, these days you need something. So it's like I know people who are like, I still use a flip phone, and that was me up until a few years ago. I was really late to the smartphone game, and I was still using a flip phone. And people get a certain sense of pride out of that, and I get it. But I think it's good to maintain a balance between all of the changes. I don't want to be the person who's out there buying the latest fancy phone, but I also don't want to reject that stuff because I know from my own experience that eventually I do come around. It's almost like certain words that I'll refuse to use some new word that people are using, like selfie or something like that, and then later I'll just embrace it. Not to say I've embraced that word, but still, like I'll eventually come around. Same thing with smartphones. Now it's like I take pictures constantly. I'm all over like social media and all that bullshit because it's the world we live in. But I've been thinking about the world we live in, and I've been thinking about the idea of nihilism, and that's because just my interests being what they are, the people I care about and know being who they are, there's a lot of nihilism or so-called nihilism. And what I've embraced in recent times is a sort of positive nihilism. Because when the people I know, when they say, they're nihilistic or they're embracing some kind of, nihilism, usually what they mean isn't that nothing matters, because the idea of nihilism is essentially, I've never read books about nihilism or real nihilistic philosophy or anything like that. But it is something I've thought about my entire life. I mean, I would say I've definitely, nihilism has been a running theme as long as I can remember, even before I could describe it, which I think is important because nihilism existed before it was called nihilism, in the same way that the occult existed before people called it the occult and threw symbols up and wrote books about it. So the idea of being some kind of orthodox nihilist or orthodox, occultist is kind of ridiculous to me, because these what do I call them? Sensations, these themes, they were there probably since Pandora's box got opened. Maybe before that even, since Eve bit the apple. Maybe before that even. Maybe Eve bit the apple because she was feeling nihilistic. I don't know. But when I hear people say they're nihilistic, or, they are just, usually what they mean isn't nothing matters. What I'm hearing from them when they say they're feeling nihilistic is, I'm following the orthodox religion of misery and self-destruction, which really isn't nihilism. It sounds to me like you have kind of a self-defeating narrative in mind, and you're using nihilism to kind of cover for that. Because if nothing matters, then there's really not any good or bad. And if there's no good or bad, nihilism can be as productive and healthy as you want it to be, just like it can be as destructive and negative as you want it to be. And what it is it's a certain sense of freedom, I think. And for me, what I say positive nihilism, and like everything, I think in my life at this point, there's a tongue-in-cheek element. And for me, that means it's become, I can make these good decisions. I've done things to fuck my life up, for sure. I'm not coming from some place of, I've made a lot of bad decisions in my life. I really have. And now I'm trying to make better decisions. I'm continually trying to be healthier. For me, working out, for me, thinking, rewiring my brain to be less judgmental, less of a misanthrope, things like that to me are just as nihilistic as embracing misanthropy, as embracing self-destruction. It can really be whatever you want it to be. So I would tell people, I would say to people, I don't actually say this to people because it's not what they want to hear. It's not like people I know are that serious about their so-called nihilism. I don't want to, I would hate to like be that guy who just, I don't want to be, I don't, I don't want to be somebody who people don't want to be around. So therefore, if somebody tells me they're like feeling nihilistic or I see something that some sort of like expression of nihilism, I'm not going to be like, well, you can also change your life for the better and still be just as nihilistic. I don't want to be that guy. So instead I just make videos about the things I think about that. And, well, one aspect of positive nihilism is, just doing things without overthinking them. That's been a big aspect for me. And I'm not going to break down some philosophy of posi nihilism. I don't have a philosophy about it, but I feel that kind of what motivates me these days is just the idea of that, and just the idea of it doesn't need to be broken down. Um, but going back to the technology thing, there's a lot of nihilism in technology. There's, you think about growing up, people had photo albums with their pictures, and you'd go over to someone's house and they would sit you down and show you a scrapbook or show you a collection of photos. Look at these photos I developed. And there was less immediacy. People would get photos developed and be like, oh, I totally forgot I took that picture. Whereas now it's this immediacy. It's digital Polaroids are basically what we have now, and they're even faster than Polaroids. And then what makes that nihilistic, though, is that we throw them up on accounts or we keep them on devices, and those devices, your screen cracks, something happens, you lose all the photos. You threw up all these great photos on your MySpace and you forgot the password, your Flickr. You threw them all up on your Flickr. Now you can't access them, and all those memories are down the hole. That's nihilism, that's something. But I think there's a way to embrace that, and I've kind of embraced that. I've embraced technology in certain ways. I've started using social media almost to an obnoxious level. Probably not as much as some people, but still, like, I kind of impulsive, kind of just like stream of whatever, not consciousness. It's certainly stream of unconsciousness. No, it's not even that. I don't know what it is, but it's a weird, I don't know. I see social media, for example, as, and the internet in general, as a way to access more of the material world than you would otherwise be able to access. And by material world, I'm also meaning people. We're getting access to people that we never would have had otherwise. Introverted people, people that we might not really get to know otherwise. We see into their lives a bit more, and I really like that. I honestly do. However, I think a lot of people are growing to really resent that. I think when things like Facebook got big and it went from just being like college kids and young people to being everybody you've ever known in your entire life, even the people you don't want anything to do with, and like coworkers who you have nothing in common with, but they're going to like see your weird ass self that you hide. They're going to see your internal fantasy world and your ups and downs and opinions that you wouldn't otherwise express. Who knew that being completely exposed to each other 24 hours a day would lead to resentment? Who knew? It's like people resent each other enough just like seeing each other face to face for a couple hours. So who knew that, this thing, this weird new technology that gave us greater access to each other would lead to more resentment. And I felt that way at first. I really did. I felt a certain level of resentment toward people. It's like, why are you expressing yourself? How dare you use this medium of self-expression to express yourself? And then I started doing it, and I was like, this is, and I started, it just goes along with like rewiring my brain. I was like, this is fun, it's just fun. And it's like, and there's ups and downs, there's good and bad, there's serious stuff and not serious stuff. But it's the world we live in. And I was on a run. I'll get into running later. Okay. not so much running, but I'll get into that later. But anyway, I was on a run about a month ago, and I came up behind this father and son. I'd say the father was in his 50s, and I'd say the son was a teen, like older teen, 17. And all I heard when I ran by was the dad saying to his son in this kind of cute voice, like he was trying to relate to him. And you could tell he was a really nice dad, just enjoying a walk around the lake with his son. And the dad said to his son, "What I've noticed is the more people I follow, the more people follow me." I'd made a joke, like I made a little comic with my shitty grandpa character a long time ago, a couple years ago, and so long ago, a couple years is so long. But and the grandpa was saying to the grandson, in order to get likes, you got to give likes, and that's just a universal thing about life. It's very true. You have to show people you care in order for them to care about you. In a lot of cases, it's a two-way street. But that's basically what the father was saying, and he was just talking about, he wasn't getting philosophical. He's not crazy, he's not crazy. But I think some people I know and people that I otherwise consider very intelligent, insightful people would have been in my position running by and thought that sucked. They would have been like, that sucks. That sucks. That dad's talking about Instagram or Twitter or something to his son. He's relating to his son over this like bullshit technological medium. The world sucks. I'm a nihilist. I thought it was cute. I was just like, that's the world we live in. The world we live in. It can be, you can use that negatively, but I think it can be just as positive. It's kind of like, like what I was saying about nihilism. And it is the world we live in. It is. And it's not changing. And here's a story. I started using the internet. I think we got AOL when I was in 5th or 6th grade. We had these neighbors who worked for an educational software company. It was a couple. I think they were in their 20s, but looking back, they seemed so much older. I think they were 30, 35, 40. They were in their 50s. No, they were relatively young, early tech industry sort of people. And they introduced me to the internet, and they put me on AOL one night, and I'd never used the internet before. And they put me in a chat room, and it was just so bizarre, the idea of like just chatting with people like that. And people were chatting about like nothing. It's like they were like pretending to be in a hot tub, like in the chat room or something like that. And not even in a sleazy way. It was just like, oh, I'm going to go sit by a jet. I remember someone saying something like that, and I was just like, this is so weird. But I was so fascinated by it. And then like another time, like later on, they let me access the actual internet, not just AOL, but like websites. And I looked up, they had a laptop too. It was crazy. It was like this big bulky laptop, and they had a get together, and my family went over, and they were just like, well, Eric's going to hate this. So let's just give him the computer. And so they set me up on the internet, and I was looking at like custom Star Wars figures, like Star Wars figures that didn't exist at the time that people had made themselves. And I remember just being like, holy shit. Once again, like greater access to the material world. That's always been, I think, my interest in computers rather than just the digital world itself. That's not interesting to me. I don't like digital art. I don't like internet jokes. I don't like memes, and I hate to say that. There's funny stuff I've seen and all that, but still, it just doesn't appeal to me, like digital for digital's sake. I like greater access to the material world. And like the Star Wars figures too, it's like now they make every single figure under the sun from every single like book and movie and everything, But at the time, they're fairly limited to the original trilogy. So seeing all these crazy figures was really fascinating. And then my family got AOL, and then all that, and the rest is history. But I'm a product of that, and I was always, I think in my age group, I was using it a lot more than other people. And I have this memory from junior high. I think it was 8th or 9th grade. And I had this friend who, he's now a famous musician, and we're out of touch, whatever. But I'm bragging. I'm not name dropping though. I'm not name dropping. I'm being really vague. But anyway, like and then he was talking to this other friend of ours who was like a future business leader of America. I don't know what he's exactly doing now, but he was a really sharp kid who liked weird people, but he was also like one of those type A future business leaders of America. And the future musician, he made some kind of comment that implied he checked his email every day. Who knows what the context was? It was like 18 years ago. But the other guy, the business guy, Mr. Music and Mr. Business, Mr. Business was like, "You check your email every day?" Like as if that was like horrible. And around that time too, there was a lot of fear surrounding the internet. Um, Basically, if you use the internet, your child's gonna be abducted by a pedophile. Your wife's gonna meet another guy. He's gonna leave you for another guy from a chat room, and you're gonna get your credit card stolen, and you're gonna be addicted. That was basically the attitude then about the internet. And you would hear a lot about internet addiction, and you hear now a lot about phone addiction. And phones are computers, they're not phones. So really what they're talking about is a sort of internet addiction. But you don't hear people talk about internet addiction anymore, and the reason for that is because it's fully integrated with us. Yeah, you don't walk down the street, like you're not in the internet walking around, but at the same time, the internet is fully integrated in our lives. You pretty much have to check your email every day if you are employed or have a profession of any kind. Even if you're an artist, even if you're someone who has some sort of atypical profession, you have to check your email every day. You check your email every day? Nowadays, it's the opposite. If you don't check your email like all day, there's people who get impatient. There's people who get mad if you don't text them within a certain amount of time. It's insane. And that's fucked up too. Both ends of that spectrum are fucked up. Like the shaming people for like using the internet too much, like, in the 90s or early 2000s is just as bad as like shaming somebody for like not checking it enough these days. But that's because it's integrated, and it's like people are using it all the time. And if you question me saying it's integrated, I would ask you this question. Do you check the internet more than you eat? Do you check people who have eating disorders need not apply. But if you check the internet more than you eat, it's integrated. If you, I don't know. People have food addictions and that kind of thing, but chances are you check some sort of internet more often than you have meals or snacks, and that's integration. Just like food's integrated into your life. Obviously it's a necessity, and the internet is not. But still, I think you have to look at it that way. And I've kind of, I think I've been using social media a lot lately, and I think I'm probably obnoxious. I think people probably think I'm obnoxious, and that's okay. It's that resentment once again. But once again, I feel that it's been integrated. I call my phone my magic wand because that's what it is. If you were to, we have these ideas of what a magic wand is, that it's an elongated thing with a star on the end. It's, it's a magical wizard stick. That's also another thing too. Anyway, but people have this idea of what things are, but that goes for a lot of things. People have this vision of things, this romantic idea of what things are, of what a magic wand would be. And in reality, I don't even know where my phone is, but I don't know where my magic wand is. But and I got a new magic wand yesterday because I cracked my old one. I cracked my old magic wand and I just went and got a new one. But it really is. You think about everything that's in that little rectangular device, and that's a fucking magic wand. And the fact that it gives me access to everyone I know who... Oh, there it is. Where is it? It's hidden. Do you hear that? It's like I was talking about it and it revealed itself. I don't need to check it on here. That's just because I'm addicted. The reason I would check my phone right now is because I'm addicted. But still, it's a magic wand, and I'm somebody who believes in magic, just like Barry Manilow. And could it be magic? And yeah, it could be. It could be. I think magic is, for lack of a better word, an explanation for things we can't understand. And magical things have happened to me through technology, strange things. It's a tool. And it's not just some digital device. There are strange things that go on in this world that we can't really comprehend. And technology reacts to that. Technology becomes incorporated into that. Even if it was a traditional magic wand, do I have anything here that could potentially look like a magic wand? I mean, a fucking microphone's a magic wand. A mic stand's a magic wand, Yeah, Eric's really lost his mind now because he thinks everything's a magic wand. It's really sad. It's just sad. He should watch some Neil deGrasse Tyson and get his reality check, because a human being sitting there talking about space and describing what goes on in a place that we've never been to and likely never will as individuals. Clearly, there's no magic involved in that. No, not at all. Um, but strange things do happen. Synchronicities, weird phenomena. Um, and I acknowledge technology's role in that. And like I said, I try to maintain a balance because I experience strange phenomena in the world, and I've had really strange things happen as a result of using technology. And I'm not going to reject that because I love strange things happening. Um, so positive nihilism. I don't, I think that's just that. I don't know a way to bring it back to that, but I'll definitely be coming up with that again. I kind of like saying it because I hate saying positive nihilism. I like it because I've become very into like making myself uncomfortable. Kind of like how I've gotten into stupid motivational quotes, and my absolute favorite is Nike's. Even though I have no interest in Nike and I don't like Nike, I love their slogan, "Just do it." I've embraced that, and that includes making yourself uncomfortable. And I love these days making myself uncomfortable, which is why I do this. I haven't done this exact positioning of my equipment, so I'm a little off. But just do it. Just do it. No, Nike. I think, and there's something strange there. I'll go into Nike another time. Eric thinks there's something strange in Nike. Everything's strange. I mean, that's really kind of where I'm at. Everything is so phenomenally strange, and I'm totally sober these days too. I quit drinking a little over 3 months ago, and I think I'm going to keep it up. It just got dark again, really dark, and I have some health concerns and stuff. I'm not some AA freak. I don't buy into a lot of recovery philosophy. I just have to do things my own way, stubbornly, but so far it's working out really well, and I still enjoy hanging out with people at bars, and I love it when I kind of live vicariously through people who are drinking. Like I had texted a friend on their birthday, and I was like, "Make sure you tell me what you're drinking." But yeah, that's what you do when you forget your train of thought. You say, "Yeah," because that's positive. Because you lose. It's positive nihilism. It's saying, "Yeah." I could go, no. But yeah, to go back to the people who embrace nihilism in this kind of orthodox way, or what they think, it's like, I'm miserable and, things aren't changing in my life, but I'm not willing to change. Who knew? Who knew that things aren't going to change around you if you don't change? And that goes back to me trying to make myself uncomfortable. The more uncomfortable I make myself and the more I challenge kind of my established identity, the better I feel, and I feel this rush of energy. Not drinking. It's been about a week since I smoked pot. I was still smoking pot regularly, but I'm taking a break from that. I'm eating extremely well, and I'm not bragging. I'm just describing a process that is working for me. Caffeine still. I mean, if you can't tell from my motor mouth, I just had like a big fat thing of black coffee. Yeah. I hurt my leg running. One of the last videos I made, I was just like, I was arrogantly describing how much I'd been running. And this one day, when I knew I shouldn't have gone out running, I did. And I really fucked my leg up. And that was 4 weeks ago. And I have not been able to run since. And it sucks. But, I think sometimes you have to fuck yourself up. Kind of like with drinking. You have to fuck yourself up sometimes to figure out your limits and to go on the next track. What else is there? What else is there to talk about? The world we live in, there's so much to talk about. There's so much to think about and talk about. I think too, like I worry right now a little bit that like some of the things I say to people and some of the ways that I carry myself seem like I'm like preaching or trying to like say that like I'm on the best possible path I could possibly be on, and that I'm exactly where I should be. And the reality is I'm not. I have a lot of work to do to get where I need to go. But because this is all a process, I feel comfortable talking about it, and I'm in that process, and I'm figuring out a system within all the chaos that works for me. And I think that's an important thing too, because when you hear that, when you hear the idea of being on the right path, people think that means like a path to happiness or zen or some kind of like glorious, sunbreak at the top of the mountain. And the right path is not necessarily the happiest path or any of that. And one way that you know you're on the right path is synchronicity. I love Duncan Trussell's podcast, and he continually harps on this, where he says, synchro, synchro, syn- 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 synchronicities start firing off when you're kind of engaged with the world and in the flow of things. You've let go a certain amount, and they start firing off, and they can be signs that you should proceed where you're going, but they can also be warning bells. And a few times in my life, I've had some warning bells that came in the form of synchronicity. Synchronicity is a meaningful coincidence. It's not, like meeting somebody and you've been watching like a popular TV show. Like I've been watching Game of Thrones, and I met somebody who was also watching Game of Thrones. Isn't that crazy, man? Isn't that fucking crazy? No, it's not like that. It's when when it's meaningful and when it's not, and when you're reaching and when you're not. So a synchronicity is something that's a little bit more powerful than the average coincidence. Even if you don't know the meaning of it, it feels meaningful. And usually it means you're on like a path you need to go on. And certain character building experiences I've had have been filled with synchronicities, and they were not happy character building experiences. They were not necessarily positive. There were positive aspects for sure. I think about like my trip to Korea. That was a huge one, and there were a million synchronicities firing off. And they really do fire off. That's what it feels like. It feels like a firework, a little mental firework. Um, and people will try to reject synchronicity, and that's you need to watch some Neil deGrasse Tyson. I'm kind of ripping that off from Duncan Trussell. He kind of has made that reference, but I'm I take in what I hear. But and nothing against like Neil deGrasse Tyson. I've never watched his show, and like I love the sciences. I think the sciences are fascinating, but we're in this weird age where like there's that atheistic sort of rejection of anything that can't be explained by science, and people really reach with that in the same way that some people, like new age people, will like reach to like form synchronicities and meaning out of things that might not have any meaning. I think people who are like obsessed with the hard sciences will reach a lot to try to reject anything that can't be explained by the sciences. And what else about? I could just go on about synchronicity forever. But synchronicity does guide me, and like I said, it doesn't. It feels almost always, if synchronicities are happening at a rapid rate, it means you're on the right path, or I'm on the right path. I'll speak for myself here, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a path to happiness. And it's sort of like that stuff. Like there's that whole like positive ideation thing, which on one hand, like some of what I've started to think does fall into that category. Um, but once it's like I feel like that's so cheap. The idea of like, if you think positive, great things will happen. Really, what it comes down to is if you keep an open mind, you will experience a freedom that you didn't know you had. And within that freedom requires a certain level of discipline. You have to keep yourself in check. You have to come up with a system for yourself, and coming up with a system for yourself is so difficult. It's insanely hard, because there are so many other systems out there, religions, ideologies, and they're almost always an easy, you almost always get paralyzed or imprisoned by those things. And it's so difficult to come up with your own. And I don't really have my own, and I'm just kind of winging it. But like, I really do feel inspired by that winging it. That's a very eloquent way of putting it. I'm inspired by that winging it. It don't make me no never mind. Which is sort of nihilism. It don't make me no never mind. um, so yeah, I think you just have to keep an open mind. Which once again, it goes back to these cliches, these awful cliches, and you say them to yourself, and you're like, God, I never thought I'd be here. Where I'm saying you just got to keep an open mind. But really, it's true. It's true. And don't be afraid to do something that works for you. And if you truly are feeling nihilistic, that means you have every option available to you. That means every option is available, good and bad. And sometimes you do have to take those 2 steps back in order to make 3 steps forward. Because when you take 2 steps back, you can charge up. You can kind of get into a football stance, dig your hand into the ground, and then fire off like a lineman. Sometimes you do have to take those 2 steps back, as much as it sucks, as bad as it can feel to step backwards. And I don't know where I'm headed. I really don't. I have to. My whole goal right now is to find a way. I spread myself very thin, too thin, and I'm trying to find a way to kind of bring a lot of different things together in my life. And I feel like the ways that I want to do it, I know are not possible, because that's not how anything works. God, now see, this is a problem. Who's calling me? It says, it's weird. It says Liberty Court. Who the fuck? Liberty Court. Like that's like it's like telling me who it is. It's not like a number in my system. The world we live in, you get a fucking vibrating thing, and it freaks me out. Like, why would a court be calling me? What even is Liberty Court? I don't know, man. I'm sorry. It's the world we live in. In order to get followers, you got to give followers. In order to give light, you got to get. In order to get light, you got to give light. I don't know. Here we go. Here's the spiral. The spiral starts now because of that phone call. Things are disruptive, though. We walk around with these magic wands, and it's not just people you know that can communicate with you through them. It's things that you've never heard of, random phone numbers. They just left a voicemail. I think because for the sake of this, oh my God. It's just like, see, that is a nightmare right there. Look at my hat. But that is why magic wands can be trouble, because now I have anxiety over whatever that call was, and it disrupted this, and just that vibration is so disruptive. But just for the sake of all this, for the sake of the whole world we live in thing, and just the absurdity of everything, I'm gonna check and see what it was. I'm gonna listen to the voicemail. I apologize, and you're gonna watch me check a voicemail, which means that you are participating in the ultimate form of nihilism right now. You are a nihilist if you are watching me do this. And if you like it, you're still a nihilist, and if you hate it, you're still a nihilist. So don't worry, you're a nihilist. Oh my goodness. Oh God. That is nihilism right there, because all it was the sound of like a keyboard. I don't even know. It was sort of like a shuffling sound, but it almost sounded like that. You know how like when you call like a number with a pre-recorded computer voice or anything, like press 1 to talk to a representative, press 2 to schedule an appointment. How like in between your commands you'll hear a little typing now, like it's like fake typing to make it sound like it's like, it's a computer voice, so why do they have to simulate typing? It's like, that's why people reject technology. That's where like my Luddite side comes out, and I might be pronouncing that wrong, but that's where like that side of me comes out and just wants to like blow it all up. But I also find the entertainment in it. That somebody was so stupid, because they honestly were, to be like, or they were such a prankster. They were a real Loki. It was done by some god. The god of pranks and mischief was like, you know what would be really funny is if when somebody talks to an automated voice, we threw in like little keyboard tapping sounds, because everything's crazy and it's going to get even crazier. But yeah, this was kind of a stream of consciousness, and obviously I'm like kind of manic and very caffeinated, and I'm just flowing with it, but I prefer that. I'd rather be doing a video like this than when I'm in a mode where I'm like, I had a thought and I forgot it, but I'm just so nihilistic, I just don't care. This is turning into like a weird phone sex thing. We could do that. We're gonna get there eventually. We're gonna, the world, and that's the thing about the world we live in too, is things are boundaries are breaking down. People's identities are less defined, and I've talked about identities in other videos, but like you don't have to be like 'cause there's a certain type of person who goes out into the world and you have to tell them, I'm a comedian for them to laugh at your jokes. You know, you have to like set it up and be like, this is my identity for them to understand it. But I think we're at a point, and especially with podcasting, a lot of the podcasts I listen to, where it's like there's really no boundary. Something that can go from being a joke and pure comedy to being like serious and philosophical or dark and personal. It can go from all of that in the same sentence. And I think we as people are getting more comfortable with that. It's not our roles, you know, the feudal system was a long time ago, but there are still traces of it here. And we need things, you know, it's like the whole like, so what do you do? What do you do? You know, that sort of thing. That question's becoming less and less relevant. And and it's easier to answer than ever. Just follow me. I'll follow you if you follow me and you'll see what I do. But the idea of like being defined by your profession or like having to like package yourself in a certain way in order for people, I feel like ridiculous right now with this like puffy thing up here. My puffy beanie. It's the name of my pet dog is Puffy Beanie because I wear a puffy beanie. But yeah, I think things are becoming less prepackaged. And we're defining ourselves less and less by our professions, by these superficial identities. Like, I'm a foodie, I'm a techie, and this and that. It's like, no, I do a lot of different stuff, and, you know, I'm just a person who is figuring things out. That's not what I wanted to say. I'm a puffy beanie. Me? I'm a guy, I'm the puffy beanie guy. People do that. There's a guy I think about sometimes because I've seen him a few times in person, but he's kind of a micro celebrity in Washington State, particularly the Seattle area. And there was the basketball team, the Sonics, that later moved. And there's this guy who wears like all Sonics outfits. He has a big afro with like a pick in it, and he goes to sports games and he advocates for bringing the Sonics back to Seattle. And he's called the Sonics guy. And it's like, we can all become like, and I have nothing against that guy. I kind of think he's cool. Like, I like his shtick. He has a really cool look about him, and he seems like a good guy. He has an iconic look about him. But still, like, we could all be like the Sonics guy. I could be the puffy beanie guy. It's like, oh, the puffy beanie guy went to the Seahawks game and was advocating for puffy beanies, whatever. Oh, God, I should end this. I should end it. I'm a nihilist. I'm just putting myself into a corner, and I'm painting myself into a corner of horrible things because I'm a nihilist. I'm a puffy beanie nihilist. Yeah, this is just falling apart. I got to wrap it up. I feel like there's some ideas in this, and if you watch these, I really do appreciate it because it's a way to get these thoughts out. It's a way to get energy out, and this is all part of a process for me. I make these videos because I'm really in the middle of a process, and I think I will always be in the middle of that process. I don't ever see myself, you know, I don't know. You know, I have a vision for where I want to go, but I never would have imagined that I'd be like right here. Like, my vision of myself when I was younger, if I even had one, wouldn't be that I'd be the person I am right now. So I don't know where I'll be eventually, and I'm totally comfortable with the idea that I'm always going to be in the middle of a process. Positive nihilism, isn't that the same thing as Buddhism? Buddhism? Maybe. You know, I know very little about Buddhism, but I actually like the things I hear about it. It's just that, once again, I'm not going to like subscribe to like someone else's orthodox idea because I'm too oppositionally defiant. I'm just too much of a rebel. I'm such a rebel, I got to tell everybody I'm a rebel. I can't just live a rebellious lifestyle. I got to tell everybody. Just tell everybody. I got to wear the patches. I got to wear the punk rock patches in order to tell everybody I'm a rebel. Now I'm talking shit. You know, for such a positive guy, I always end up talking shit. Well, whatever. I'm in the middle. Stuck in the middle. But not with you. Whew. This thing's over. Lots of regrets here. I'll probably cut down on the cut down on the coffee next time. Anyway, thanks for watching School Night TV.